At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Welcome to the Ankler Podcast. This is Sean McNulty of the Wake Up Newsletter here at the Ankler here in New York City on Thursday, September 19th. I'm joined by two people whose hors d'oeuvre consumption over the past 10 days should win its own award, Elaine Lowe and Richard Rushfield in Los Angeles. Richard, has your buffet appetite returned? We got many letters of both concern and encouragement from podcast listeners last week. So what's the status?
You know, I came back from Toronto thinking I might never go to a reception again.
Your words were dire last week, and everybody was I was thrown off.
It seemed like the end of my buffet life.
It's a bad breakup or something.
Yeah, but I'm getting back on my feet. I dipped my toe back into the pool last night. Universal had a gathering on its lot to celebrate their new buildings, a new sort of central executive area.
Okay.
Which was very nice. They had chicken mole taquitos and
so you're back, Richard.
These little Wagyu
Richard's
steak.
Back. All right, exactly. Yeah, all right.
You were out of the hors d'oeuvre game for like a week, Richard.
Yeah, Richard, this did not last. Clearly, you're back.
So a tough week. It was
touch and go, but
yeah,
I had no doubt in your ability and your return, Richard. So well done. Before the record here, Elaine reminded me to point out that while we are not sponsored by Johnny Walker Black like the Emmys, we are open to a deal, Elaine, right? We're open to a check?
I think we're happily able to do an awkward bit of product placement.
We could do it better than anybody, quite frankly. You want awkward product placement, I think that three of us would be your first call. I'm a little pissed off we didn't get the call there about that, but yeah.
That bit didn't work for you, Sean? That bit didn't work for you?
No, it wasn't awkward enough. I'm like, if you want awkward, you should have really come to us. I'm like, clearly you're going to too many professionals. That's your problem. You need to go more to the
singular ad in the entire Emmys that ran on for just like a minute too long.
Yeah, that's being generous, but yes. No, hey, no such thing as bad publicity, right? But Emmys seem like they're, of course, 2 weeks away at this point. No need to really relive those per se. But, Richard did kind of an interesting moment here. To kind of look at the bigger picture in streaming, I think, and where things have kind of settled out for your various approaches, the strategies that have kind of shaken out here. I mean, for a while, I think everybody was going for prestige and be the buzzy service and have that kind of a show. And now I don't know that everybody cares to some degree, but I think some differentiations have started to emerge here. What's on your streaming mind here post Emmys?
It kind of felt like this was a valedictory Emmys for the period of prestige. The way they divided up the Emmys like perfectly between.
It was pretty neat. You broke it down in your column this week, and I was like, it hadn't dawned on me, but I'm like, yeah, funny how that kind of.
Yeah, with the big five in the prestige area and no one else, no Tubi nosing in there or anything like that, or. Right. AMC getting
Peacock even or something. Yeah.
No, they just kept it to the major players. But it feels like we're on the verge of some kind of consolidation, and we'll see what, as we've been saying for 5 years now. But now it really feels like that. I mean, these situations at Paramount and Warner's in particular just sort of can't go on like that. So yeah, we kind of know the beginning of what the change will look like at Paramount, but
right. I mean, clearly there's a big move ahead there. Yeah, but what's David Ellison going to do? Right.
And Warner's then seems like the big question mark moves over to Warner's.
Apple's still a big question mark, I guess, Richard, but that's not in the same league as WBD by any means. So,
what's the biggest question mark for you about WBD? I mean, obviously losing the NBA, and I know there's talk of dilution of the HBO brand. Certainly going into the Emmys this weekend, it was like, are they going to have anything to celebrate at the HBO party over at the San Vicente Bungalows? And it turns out they
did.
Yeah,
big surprise there, yeah.
I mean, it's just, they got this massive debt thing. Right. So it's...
Well, sure.
That can't just hang out there forever unaddressed. It's like a looming crisis every month.
Yeah. The stock's still hovering, it's at 40 today. It's got down to 7. So, Elaine, it's just, all right, what's going to bring this thing up at some point?
Half the revenue is from the cable bundle, which is set to
That's not going to increase.
disappear at some point. And the other half are all troubled in one way or another. Troubled because the sector is troubled, or troubled because they have particular troubles there. So it's a tough time. It's definitely not going to be like a couple films get you out of this hole.
Beetlejuice will not turn things. It's great to have it. The studios division will be the studios division, but they have, which they put out 3 main divisions, Richard. Studios, which is, again, business of hits, TV studio, that's a solid, and that's as old, old as the industry. But then you have the TV business, the cable business, which we just said, and then the streaming business, which is still breaking even. And they're, Elaine, they've got to get to $1 billion of profitability in a year's time here, or maybe 15 months. And it's like, how is that going to come out of the ether all of a sudden? So
I'm curious, coming out of the Emmys now and taking a look at HBO. I mean, I know for me, a topic of discussion that was circulating over the past week is sort of like, how do we view the HBO brand? Because Hacks is actually a Max show.
It's actually not. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I know. I think everybody sees it that way. Yeah. It's, it's back to your point, Richard. Yes, they certainly disperse the Emmys in a certain way, but, and Elaine, I don't know, I'm kind of curious, what you think about this, but it's like interesting to see it's still kind of FX and HBO, which is kind of what it was for the 2010s on the whole, in terms of, there's obviously every year has little, surprises and things like that. But the Emmys this year, and you have Netflix still doing well. Those are your 3. But Amazon doesn't seem to really
register,
do what it used to, or even care. I don't know if maybe they care to a degree, but they're not going after that audience anymore with their, with their bigger hits. Apple would like to, I think, but I don't know. They're just, they had the morning show at a few, they're kind of, but they're not.
They got one for Slow Horses. They got one for the morning show. They got bits and bobs
there, but they're not quite getting there to that tier of, of the HBO, and it's like HBO, FX, and and Netflix are still the 3 main people there. So,
well, does it even matter anymore?
Well, that's a big question for you, Elaine. That's not a question for me. Please, that's your area.
Yeah, I think that's a valid question. Like, you look at the ratings for the Emmys, what was it, 6.4 or something? It wasn't a huge number. Yeah, close 6.9, close to 7. Haven't seen that number since 2021. These numbers are generally haven't been trending upward. This was like a 50-something% bump from January, the surprise Emmys for the American viewer, because nobody was expecting it in January.
Bonus Emmy, yeah.
Right. the bonus Emmy. But it's like you don't get the same next day bump on viewership. I was talking to an agent last week who said, once upon a time, the Emmys actually sort of mattered when it comes to development and when it comes to viewership. But in terms of that bump, that's not as existent anymore.
But the talent still wants them. I think that's still true. I think, Richard, that's they'll always want the awards.
You have a lot of kind of adult dramas, adult shows out there, and there's a limited number of ways to distinguish them and have them break out. And getting a bunch of Emmy nominations is a big one. So
yeah. And having Emmy Award winner next to your name in a credit sequence and so forth, and having Richard, I think you wrote about this, the spending behind it, to put a campaign together. Well, who's going to spend that money to promote you, really? This is a campaign for the actor more than anything else in town,
If you were to declare we're not in the Emmy business anymore, right. Watch what follows with your talent recruitment.
Landing those pitches may not be... They may think twice about that, where they might land. So that is true. And then, HBO and FX will have that halo. So they do still spend and still get your show out there. So, we remember that Shogun thing at the upfronts, FX spent on that show, man. They did not, TV ads, wherever. I remember watching during football, they've spent on that show.
Yeah, but how replicable is that situation? How many people are going to do another Shogun with an 8-year gestation period?
Well, I'm just saying FX will spend to support the things they believe in, is what I mean,
That is the thing about FX and HBO that people like. Like, they will commit to a smaller slate, but they're going to get the marketing spend, as opposed to a Netflix where the complaint has been, where are the marketing dollars, or is this going to get lost in the algorithm?
Anyway, let's shift over to the Mouse House here, Richard. Bit of a shakeup today, a little bit here in Disney's animation division. The head of the division, Jennifer Lee, is out, or at least she's segueing to direct and write the next Frozen movie and co-write Frozen 4, which I assume is happening now. She was the director of Frozen and won an Oscar for that, the original Frozen. She led the group for 6 years, coming in after the John Lasseter situation. The last bit of this tenure, Richard, kind of a not great Bob here with a back-to-back duds of Strange World and Wish. Ryan the Last Dragon kind of got caught in the pandemic a little bit there, but a bit of a mixed record here. I should note this doesn't involve Pixar, which is a different division. Pete Docter is still running that. Jared Bush is the new head of the division. He wrote Moana, Encanto, and Zootopia, and also the scripts for the upcoming Moana and Zootopia sequels.
Which is kind of all the Disney animation hits of the last 10 years, other Frozen.
Throwing Frozen in, that's you've got them all there, right? Richard, yeah. So he's certainly had a good run there with the script writing. So, and obviously if Moana 2 is a hit at Thanksgiving, Richard, everything's forgiven. We're back, baby, so.
Hey, I mean, if generally can keep Frozen as a viable franchise, I mean, how many billions of dollars is that worth?
Still their largest, Inside Out 2 was challenging it for certain, but is that tier of box office, Richard?
Yeah, and in terms of toys and rides and everything else, that is that is pure minting money there. So
it's pure profit center. So yeah, she's back over to that, which is look, maybe that, as you said, that franchise needs that care. If she was to guide that film through production and also have to worry about the rest of the slate, you don't want to, again, which Iger's talked about, having split in too many directions, Richard, can be a concern there too.
Well, I mean, Frozen 2, was kind of
that had that so-so. The box office was great, but yeah, creatively was like a little bit of a.
So if Frozen 3 were another so-so, that would start to be bad.
Yep.
And you'd start to be saying you're damaging your entire franchise. So not phoning in the next chapters of Frozen sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah. But you had some bigger thoughts there at Disney in the C-suite this week, Richard. What's on your mind here?
Yeah, well, I was just inspired by a New York Times article. It's now a week and a half old, but has stayed with me. And I think it's stayed with me because there's just the whole Iger, Chapek succession, and now the succession again. You just feel like we're reading a book with like lots of pages missing. Like we're that like every time you read this, it's like there's like more questions. But it comes down to like, so much weight has been put on this succession of like who can be the next Bob Iger,
right?
And like who's experienced at everything and great at everything. Which, by the way, Bob Iger
wasn't at the
had
time.
Never been near a movie, but
or a theme park at the time either. By the way, yeah.
He was from TV. So, but it all comes out of this the whole way we talk about these things, which is. We talk about these CEOs as like they're superheroes who just change everything or destroy everything. And like the entire, like every script note is like from every thing that's green lit, it just like comes out of the great vision of their superhero CEO. And so you're looking at these people like, Dana Walden, Josh Amaro, that like very experienced people who could lead a company. And the question isn't like, do you have perfect experience in every single division and have a division? It's, do you create a culture of surrounding yourself with good people and empowering them and letting them do things? So it's not just a visionary CEO. I spoke to another CEO this week who was telling me how had to make some very big decisions this week, and he said each of them took about 15 minutes because he had people that had prepared, had done their work and had prepared real recommendation and looked at all the scenarios and everything. So there was a clear path then. So the bake-off thing, we have a history of bake-offs here in Hollywood, and it was
very successful ones, but yes,
it was the last time it was done was a abject catastrophe, like probably known as one of the biggest,
one of the worst
bungles that drove two great executives, Alan Horn and Jeff Robinoff, away from Warner Brothers, led to years of infighting and instability and and humiliated everyone involved. And so Disney came along and said, "Look, that's the way to do it again." And frankly, I don't understand why they need to make this a public process. What's like Dana Walden and Josh Tomorrow the two alleged front runners as anointed by the media. What they've been working there for many years, like they have track records. They have the people have surely talked about them on campus and what they like about them and what they like less. Like, what is this process? Are they going to send them off to like Navy SEAL training camp or something and see how they?
Yeah. Yeah.
What part of the New York Times story stuck with you a week and a half later? Was there anything new that hadn't already been out there? Because there have been several accountings of the Bob and Bob.
Just once again, like how strange the whole thing was. And this story filled in a little bit more. Like I say, I just feel like we don't have the real story about it. And you know, in that story, the quote from Willow Bay saying, you know, you have to go back. They need you.
Right.
Like there's a part where I say, we don't quite. I don't think we have the full story there.
Yeah. But also just the vetting of Chapek wasn't that thorough by the board. They really didn't all interview him, like things like that. I think which they're trying to not do again, which is like things that Steph said were just not taken in that, you know, again, in that story reported, but that could be a problem.
Putting your executives out in public like this and like
here's your interview in the press and here's your interview in the press. That's kind of a test and, you know.
Yeah. And leaving them twisting in the wind, like for the ones that don't get it, it's like.
Then what happens? Right.
They're all probably going to leave, just like happened last time.
That's the big danger. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's humiliating and terrible. So I think they are doing this because the idea of like, who is the hero in the making and could fill Robert Iger's shoes has become like this like crazy
bad myth,
inflated question.
Yeah.
It's been mythologized to the degree that I don't think we've seen in any other CEO chairs. I mean, part of it is just the continual contract renewals that have fueled this question over the years. Because what is he up to? 4 contract renewals, building on the idea that nobody can do this but Bob Iger.
Yeah, but it's not helping the situation.
It's almost an impossible position to fill right now.
The mythologizing of it comes to us, you know, very much from the gift from the tech industry, which the cult of the founders is like a religious belief. Yeah,
well, we'll see. I mean, he's coming up to November's, you know, his second extension has 2 more years left, so we'll see how long this is gonna drag out. And obviously, you know, he may know and at what point you bring this person in and things like that. But you're right, Elaine. The more that this kept building on top of each other. And then he came back after Chip and he saved it again, you know, whatever, you know, which is where we are right now, righted the ship. But Richard, in terms of those skills, it's interesting you mentioned, you know, where Iger came in, you know, replacing, of course, Michael Eisner, the Eisner-Obitz, you know, era of the company, which is a whole other story. But, you know, it does come to, and what happened with Chapek is, you know, it's all like talent is a big part of this. And like, how do you deal with that? Where Chapek, that was really where he tripped up a lot. Was, you know, taking the power away from both talent, creative talent, the executives, where he created DMed and was like, well, no, we're going to centralize all your decisions and take your budgets away. And like, all right.
People love that.
Yeah, you disempowered your creative leads and things like Scarlett Johansson, where he didn't get like, you know, how much handling talent, whether that be executive talent or creative talent, is a big part of what that job is, not necessarily have you run a theme park before.
Yeah. And as David Zaslav sees these days,
right,
the head of a studio is very capable of attracting headlines for bad reasons. Mm-hmm. And Bob Chapek had a knack for loving one thing after another. There always seems to be one of those on the board, though. There seems to be one Hollywood studio chief who's like, he's in the barrel and like just everything they touch becomes a disaster.
Well, for a while it was Zaz and Chapek going back and forth on a couple of things, and we're like, okay, the spotlight was going like back and forth a bit there for a while. But
I had not 1 but 2 Zaz sightings, by the way, at the pre-Emmy parties at the agencies Friday, and it's amazing to see how even when this mythologized figure is in person. Just curious how many people had not nice things to mutter under their breath as they pass by. And, you know, you sort of create in your head, like, I feel like the way we mythologize CEOs and leadership figures is like they're almost not like real people.
You know, we are complicit in the superheroification of them.
Yeah, and they're either heroes or they're villains.
But also, you know, Michael Kavanaugh could walk into Nate and Al's and they would say, we don't We're all full today, sir.
Sorry, sir. Right.
Why don't you try at Pan Quotidian down the street? Tony Vinciquerra.
I'll say they're exactly over my mind as well.
You're not hearing stories every day about him being photographed with Elon Musk.
Yep. There's different ways to do the job. That's certainly evident across town. So anyway, I can check out Richard's piece on that today there at the Ankler and elsewhere at the Ankler this week. We have Ashley Collins, who spoke to the top podcast deal makers in town over at CAA and WME to dive into the latest big ticket podcast deals that were making a lot of headlines there as the summer went on in the past few months. And Elaine, what was going on in serious business this week?
Oh, lots of post-Emmy talk, which by the time this pod comes out will be
well, if you want to relive
history.
Emmy talk, then there you go.
Yes, exactly. But I was taking a look at sort of how do Emmys impact development going forward, and the answer is, well, when you have a Shogun and The Bear winning, not much.
Yeah, can't do much with that. Yeah,
don't want the big period pieces, don't want expensive shows, don't want comedies that people endlessly debate as to whether it is a comedy or not. People want to make it 1997 again by science or magic, in the famous words of Jack Donaghy on 30 Rock. They just want NBC in the late 90s is what it feels like.
That's what everybody wants back. Well,
hard, funny comedies. That's
I guess so. Well, Matt, I guess Hacks would be not, the closest version we had of a winner to that, because Baby Reindeer is definitely not falling in any of those categories, I think, in terms of other lessons to take from that, Elaine.
The fewest household names out of any of the limited series in that category.
Exactly, yeah. What do we do with this? All right, thanks a lot, Emmys. Anyway, you can check all of those out over at theankler.com. Coming up next, what the box office and Netflix's big new data dump have in common. And I'm going to put Richard's 70s TV brain to the test, so stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Hi, I'm Elaine Lowe in Los Angeles, coming to you from the heart of Hollywood.
And I'm Minori Ravindran in London, reporting from the UK about the international market.
Together, we write the Series Business newsletter for The Ankler.
Series Business is a twice-weekly newsletter for paid subscribers to The Ankler that dives deep into everything you need to know about the rapidly evolving TV industry.
We've got an insider's perspective on where the jobs are, what's selling in the market, who's buying what kinds of shows, the new bottom line for budgets, and, of course, any and all industry shakeups.
Join us every Monday and Thursday for all the essential information you need for your job and career. Sign up to receive Series Business as part of a paid subscription on theankler.com.
Well, Richard, outside of Ted Sarandos, it's been a month where we've heard nothing from all the box office haters at the start of the summer. The 2024 box office is now just 12% behind last year. That includes that release slate Desert that was the first quarter this year. October comps will be a little bit tough for the Eras Tour and Five Nights at Freddy's last year. Joker 2 kind of seems a little shaky. We'll see after the Venice premiere wasn't more question marks, I think, than exclamation points coming out of that. Otherwise, just Smile 2 and Venom 3 for the big ones in October. But November, December, Richard, this is like, you got, Moana, you got Wicked, you got Mufasa, you have Sonic the Hedgehog, Gladiator, Red One with The Rock. Like this, it's a pretty banger lineup coming up after the election, at least through Christmas this year.
Yeah, it should be a strong year end. I mean, it's just what we're lacking is a kind of depth to the box office to give people that one giant that tent poles are not going to sustain a full box office picture. You need to keep all kinds of people going there. So
yeah,
you're not seeing a lot of breakouts of non-IP films. I think we talked about this the other week, that you got to go down, I think, number 13 is not what we said on the list.
Now to find a non-IP title on the list of box office, yeah.
So that's a little concerning, but at least there's tentpoles.
I was going to say, at least you have a lineup like that. I mean, last year, the comps for November, December basically was Hunger Games, Wonka, and Puss in Boots was really about it. So the lineup, those two lineups, Richard, I think again, they could finished rather strong for the year. For that 12% could get even down to single digits or even close there. So we'll see how that all pans out, and we'll see. There's that Tom Hanks, Robert Zemeckis here. There's there are these other films out there no one's seen yet, Richard. That could surprise to fill that category. That's not preordained. So
yeah, and there's still a handful of grown-up dramas out there that
we haven't seen either. Yeah,
I'm Still Here, the Bob Dylan.
Oh right, yeah,
film,
Bob Dylan pick,
Conclave from Focus.
Yeah, the Clint Eastwood movie, Juror Number 2. So yeah, there's things that look. Until we see them, but you never know. That could be that surprise that takes off. So that's what makes the box office fun. But this weekend at the box office, we have the Transformers are back, Richard. Did you miss them?
Every day.
Oh, wow.
But,
every day.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
They're like my friends of youth, friends of middle age.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I wasn't part of the Transformers series. I wasn't part of the fan base, as it were. But this new one, the buzz on it is very good. It looks, it has actual humor in it, you can tell, and all that. So I'm very curious to see this.
Yeah, I can confirm that for you. The folks at Paramount were kind enough to invite me to the premiere in New York this week. It is. It's fun, Richard. And I know I think I saw the first Michael Bay movie way back when.
Are you a Transformers completist, Sean? Have you?
No, I'm not. I'm the exact opposite. That's all I did. So I'm definitely not. And it was, and it was not lost, Richard. There was no mythology. I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff that just went over my head. It didn't really matter, but yeah, it is fun. They have some fun with it. There's, it's a kind of an origin story kind of thing. So I thought they did a great job. So I hope that does well and takes off. That's Transformers 1. From Paramount, tracking about 30 million plus this weekend. So we'll see if that hopefully continues. The box office streak here. Anybody seen Beetlejuice, by the way? I haven't asked either one of you. No?
Not
Anybody?
yet.
I'm looking forward to it. I do want to see it.
Okay. All right.
I want to see it also, but
well, still has some runway on that one. That's still doing extremely well. That's going to cross the 200 million mark here in the U.S. alone, probably on Friday, going into the weekend. So next week, Megalopolis, Richard, we get Francis Ford Coppola back on the big screen. You excited?
Francis Ford Coppola is, one of the top 5 filmmakers of all time, and he spent his own money on this, so God bless him. He can do whatever he wants, and have off the Lionsgate for distributing it.
Yeah, and that's going to be actually a big IMAX play as well. So, and then The Wild Robot, which you have a big thumbs up from you on that, right, Richard?
That was great, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be taking my kids on opening weekend on that one.
Oh, are you? Oh, great. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I'm kind of curious. The early tracking was like 20 million. It doesn't come back on as what it's going to do. It feels like more of not a slow burn movie, but I can just see word of mouth that could play for weeks in my mind. Maybe we'll see what happens, but maybe there's a bigger audience on opening weekend, Elaine, than
I think it was a very popular elementary school book club pick. I wouldn't be surprised to see big groups going all at once.
Could be the Colleen Hoover of the 8-year-old set, So we shall see what that does on the 27th of September, but we haven't had a new family animated film since Despicable Me 4. Nearly 3 months ago, Richard. So way to go, Hollywood, once again. I guess you probably could count maybe Harold and the Purple Crayon, which was kind of a live action hybrid. But these deserts, and again, that was Universal as well, Richard. It's like these things still baffle me. I mean, Universal's dominating this, and nobody's they're just hanging it to them, really.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like such the biggest of all the opportunities.
You go 3 months with nothing.
I just think that in these times, it takes 5 or 6 years to get one of these animated films off the ground.
Yeah.
And who thinks they're going to be in their job in 5 or 6 years from now?
Yeah, that could be a big part of it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, we had a change at the top of Disney today. Exactly, Disney animation. But I will say it's a nice little segue here to this, our Netflix first half of 2024 data dump.
Who doesn't like a data dump?
Hey, listen, that's love to start my morning. That was great this morning. It's like, oh, great, 9 a.m. You're just dropping that right in the morning, are you? Okay.
I love, first of all, how the world has changed, that Ted Sarandos is
Calling
castigating all the other studios for their lack of transparency in there.
I will say, they do give you the most data at any streamer by a mile. That's more everybody else's fault than saying that, there's a lot of things Netflix doesn't tell you. But I give credit to Netflix. They release that every week. And these, this new biannual thing is you can dive as deep as you want. You want to know how your thing did? Here you go.
Absolutely. It's hats off to them, but it's we should note the change of tone from.
Yes, certainly. Yes, and it was brought up. He was one of his many appearances this week. Oh yes, you're very transparent. So why are you removing your subscriber numbers from your earnings report in the next 2 quarters? So
because we only want to be transparent on an annual basis when it comes to subscriber numbers.
Right, exactly, pretty much. But Netflix wants to be that mysterious Dylan McKay and not the Steve Sanders, Elaine. So is that a reference you're getting at all right now?
No,
or no?
Whoosh.
Oh,
I was gonna just nod and smile.
Nothing.
But
oh man.
Oh my God, that's a 90s reference.
Explain to me who these people are.
90210, Elaine. Come on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
H-bit.
Sure.
Right.
It's a touch before my time. I watched it all before I could fully comprehend what was going on.
A smoldering Dylan.
Introduction to adolescence for me, yeah.
All right, fair enough. But I will say, I'm going to do a lot more diving into this document soon. But looking at this morning, the most popular thing on the Netflix film chart by a mile is Studio Kids animated movies. I mean, 6 of the top 13 movies in the first half of this year were not Netflix animated; they were studio animated movies. Half of the top 13. And this range from Shrek to Super Mario to Minion, across, go back 20 years, you go back 10 years, you go back 3 years, it astounds me. And again, hats off to Donna Langley and Universal. I mean, they've been this entire time, they're the only studio that really never abandoned this. I mean, Pixar went to Disney Plus for a little, whatever but they've been around. But on a consistent putting out probably I would say maybe 3 movies a year at least, maybe even more than that. They've already had Despicable Me, they've had Kung Fu Panda, they have The Wild Robots. There's 3 right there. And they get the spoils. I mean, this is, I'm sure Netflix writes them a pretty good, I hope they write them a pretty good check for these movies because they're getting a lot of viewership for Netflix at this point, Richard.
How does this list compare to the last data dump they did? Because I know for a while, Minions,
Boss Baby was up there too.
These were also other animated titles that were doing
Still are.
really
Boss
well.
Baby's back. That's the numbers I had to go back on, Elaine. You'd have to go back to the previous numbers to kind of really give more perspective about just how massive these things are. And it's interesting too, is that their own movie, Leo, with Adam Sandler, the one that Netflix
very
put that
funny, loved it.
Theatrical, but they've also put that theatrical marketing campaign behind and spent on it. That was also still going very, very strong. And it's like in no other Netflix animated movie, it's like the marketing matters so much on this stuff. And
also, it was just legit a very funny movie.
Oh, and it worked and it's great. But they've had other high quality animated movies that, just disappeared, lost in the mix all the time. And it's just like this stuff matters where it's like these campaigns and theatrical and all the stuff that, Ted will go on stage and like, well, theatrical, we don't believe in it. And I'm like, the numbers I'm seeing here, kind of have a different story, at least in the animated film, genre there. But it also just says, Richard, how much, kids viewing drives this stuff, both I'm sure on Netflix and YouTube. I'm sure if we ever saw YouTube numbers, I'm sure the numbers would astound us, Richard, as to all the streaming hours come from a certain demographic of a very young people.
Yeah. I mean, if you have 4-year-olds, the TV functions as the babysitter for much of the world. So it's hard to beat with anything at all.
And I will say also Sony, I broke down the Sony numbers. Sony has a pay one or output deal with Netflix. Tremendous success. And those films only stream in the US and in India and a couple of Asian Pacific countries. And they're not even available on the ad tier in the US either. And they do astounding numbers. So again, this power of theatrical, Richard. If Sony movies went worldwide on Netflix, those numbers would be, as big as their originals by far. So I'm not convinced about that. But
there was a time all those STX films were which had not done particularly well at the box office were coming on Netflix and just exploding.
That awareness factor really, that matters. But anything on the TV side for you, Elaine? I didn't really dive too much into the TV stuff yet, but
it struck me how many first season shows were on that list. You have The Gentleman, Avatar, The Last Airbender, American Nightmare, 3 Body Problem, and Berlin. And all of those are season 1 shows. And then the rest were largely limited series like One Day and Baby Reindeer, of course, and Fool Me Once. The only sort of
Bridgerton
show, only show deep into its seasons is Bridgerton, which is like no surprise at all.
Sure.
But it's like, oh, so I wonder if this is like a reflection of the algorithm pushing out first season shows, or the marketing campaigns behind them pushing out sort of the new thing, the limited series, the first season shows, versus some of their library.
Returns.
But I'm trying to remember what the last data dump looked like, because I mean, all their library shows have obviously done really well for them as well. Like you look at the massive viewing that like a Suits has gotten, or some of these older shows that have been in there. So yeah, it struck me that it's like, it's all the new. It's the new that's doing very well here.
The top of the charts, yeah. But that leads to their theory of just, sure keep that spigot going, man. That's the new stuff all the time. That's what the Netflix MO there. So anyway, I'll be breaking down more of the data. I've had Elaine, I know how to spend a weekend. I'm going to do a lot of math, so it's going to be a lot of fun for me this weekend. Just to dive into some more numbers.
Perfect way to bring in the fall.
Exactly.
You got your pumpkin spice latte and your Netflix data
fall
dump.
air, and exactly, my laptop. So I'll be putting a lot more of these breakdowns and comps through. Again, not just this data dump, but back to the ones from last year, which I have tracked as well, and in the wake up. We'll be putting those out in the next few days. But let's round out here, guys. You ready for a pop quiz?
Always.
Yeah.
What's the topic this week, Sean?
2 enthusiastic thumbs up. All right, I love it. All right. Well, Richard, as we are in the midst of, we're on the cusp of fall TV premiere week, as we used to have in this fine industry of ours. Richard, should the Ankler do a once-a-year fall TV preview magazine? I think we should bring this back.
We should, and maybe we get the Battle of the Network Stars.
Right.
Yes. We can sponsor that. And
is this your fall project? You guys are going to start a zine?
We're starting a zine.
Cute.
Yeah. No, it's a
Very
one edition. One edition. That's it. Comes out TV Guide style, man. Come on. I think we do gangbusters on there. We'll find Tom Selleck and put him on the cover. It'll be great. So just like old times.
Exactly. I used to look forward to that more than anything.
All right. Well, in the tradition of that,
did you have the leather TV Guide cover at your house, or
leather?
Oh, well, I know. I do know what you're talking about. Explain a little bit about what this is for the kids.
So a lot of
Richard.
people had that because the TV Guide would live on the table in front of the TV. They would have a special leather TV Guide cover,
you put the new one into every week, so you take the old one out and put the new one in. So
book jacket. People would have those permanent book jackets for their TV Guide.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Classing up the joint. So exactly. Yeah.
That's how treasured it was.
That's good living right there, Lynn. Just telling you.
I've never heard anybody talk about that before. That's amazing.
I do recall that, Richard. That's funny you mentioned that.
Why do you have a TV Guide handy, Richard?
Richard's showing us a TV Guide.
Picked up a TV Guide.
Fall preview.
I have a TV Guide. I have the fall preview issue from 1978 here.
As
there you
one
go.
does.
That's it. That's well, but we have to get you a leather jacket for it now. Now I feel like we have to search that out. So just to make
find that on eBay.
You got to find that on the eBay. Yeah, exactly. For birthday present. But anyway, all right, let's pop quiz it. Go to one of TV's greatest series of all time, The Love Boats.
Yeah.
Ready?
Oh,
Elaine,
this is so stacked for Richard.
Everybody knows Love Boat. You studied it in school.
Exactly. Elaine, you remember from your social studies classes, don't
of course.
you?
Yeah, the Love Boat chapter.
There you go.
Come
all
aboard. We're expecting you.
Yeah, that's it. Every Friday night, whatever it was. Anyway, they produced 245 episodes, regular season episodes over 9 seasons before it went off the air in 1986. So 245 there. How many guest stars appeared on the show in that time? And remember, some actors repeated, came on a few times. So this is just a total number of guest actors.
Repeats. Wow.
I'm not sure exactly how they're counting guest stars. This is according to IMDb, but that's, give me a number here. How many guest stars in the 9 seasons? And
so I'm going to say average of 8 per episode. So how many
245.
episodes?
It's so 245 episodes.
So say 250 times 8 is 2,000 minus repeats, take off 300. So 1,700.
Wow. Okay. All right.
That's my guess.
I was going to say about 1,500 using similar math. Although I feel like budgets might have been larger.
These are noted. I will say these are noted. Like these are like notable guest stars, not just like
guests, not just like literal guest stars.
They would put their faces in the opening credits, if I'm recalling correctly,
then
Richard.
That's
right?
Less. That's got to be less than 1,500 then.
Chara was on like twice a season. Or something. So take off 20.
We'll get to that in a moment, Richard. But yes, people did repeat quite a bit. So
I'm going to amend it to 1,200. 1,230.
Okay. All right. Well, according to IMDb, so they said 552 was the number that they had. So, which
we way overshot that.
But that says that was IMDb. So that's all I got.
Over 245 episodes? It seems remarkably low.
Yeah, maybe in certain years they had lower budget. I don't know. Who knows? But that's IMDb credited guest stars.
You had 3 plot lines plus 1 crew plot line. You had 3 guest.
Yeah, but some of them didn't have noted guest stars. They would just be, day player actors. Whatever. But yeah,
they were all. They were all.
Listen, I'm just going by what the internet's telling me. But anyway, all right. Question number 2: Who are the 3 people who appeared the most as guest stars on The Love Boat?
I don't even know who was on the regular cast of The Love Boat, Sean. This is an unfair quiz.
All right. I said
Richard,
it was for
tell
Richard.
us the answer.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, I'll stick with Charo.
Okay. All right. You're okay. She's top 3, but number 1 is Marion Ross.
Oh, Marion Ross.
You want to tell her who folks with Marion Ross is, Richard?
The name rings a bell.
Oh, my God.
Mrs. Cunningham. Come on.
Mrs. Cunningham. It's
Happy Days. She has the title.
I knew that.
Mrs. C. All right. She was there at 14 appearances. But she also married Captain Steubing. So there's a little bit of do you count that as a kind of, she had a little bit of a character arc there?
One of the guest stars would be in the crew member plot line. Doc would have a relationship with someone.
Yeah, so she had a little bit of an in there. So other than that, it's Florence Henderson was next, Richard, at 11.
Really?
Yes. Wow. Char was next at 10. So she was
Char
in
was,
place.
I was right about Char.
You were in top 3 there. So yes.
Huh. I got to say, Florence Henderson, God bless her, one of the less memorable guest stars.
Apparently, yeah, 11 times. So, Mrs. Brady and Mrs. C there coming back on board The Love Boat.
I would have thought it was one of because they had all those old, they had like Lillian Gish on. They had all the actors.
Yeah, but they're not repeating that many times,
I feel like Buddy Ebsen was on
I got to think that Florence Henderson, they were kind of on the lots. Mrs. C was also shooting another show. So that's my guess of maybe they were around a little more if they needed a last minute sub in for somebody. But, that's that guest booking there is crazy. All right, final question. What was the most popular occupation for passengers who came aboard for cruises?
Accountant.
Okay.
Advertising.
You're going to be very proud of this. This is according to MeTV, who the digital channel who tracks The Love Boat here. Writer was the number 1 occupation. Writer. So Richard, that might have fallen into advertising. Could have fallen. They might have grouped that in. But yes, a lot of people play themselves. Actor was one of the top 3. So, business, Elaine was number 4. So maybe we'll put accountant into business there. So not bad. But
interesting. Writer.
4% were models. So that's a good one right there.
But I interviewed Gavin MacLeod.
Oh my!
He wrote a memoir. I guess about 10 years ago. I interviewed him, and his memoir is just like it was such a pleasure to work with.
Everybody.
It is nothing but positive stories. So I said to him, you had this long career in Hollywood. You had multiple shows. You did all sorts of stuff. You had hundreds of guest stars you had to deal with on The Love Boat, and you don't have a single negative word to say about anybody. And he said, that's because they were all great. That was his answer.
Very enthusiastic.
Everyone he met in Hollywood was great.
Could have been best, I guess. Yeah. Well, at that point in your life, you're probably thinking back and whoever was bad got kicked off the boat. Richard and Florence Henderson got flown in there, so that was slotted in. So maybe that was the trick there that the Love Boat producers had over the years. But
now, is there an anniversary of the show or something that I'm not aware of? Why the Love Boat?
It's fall TV. This is a classic fall TV. You would be like, who's on the Love Boat this season? And there would be a promo.
Come back when you've got a Frasier quiz, Sean.
In 1980, ABC did, because they would all have a program every year to introduce their fall lineup.
The fall preview show, yes.
And they did one show as a cruise on the Love Boat, where it was this weird break. The crew members were all in character, but then they'd say Julie, please welcome our new friends. Here's the stars of Heart to Heart, which debuts next week on, and they all got up and on the Lido deck there, and saying, consider yourself at home on ABC.
Wow.
It's you can find this on YouTube. It's
That's
great.
fantastic. All right. Elaine, you have some homework there. There you go. That's some TV history that they just don't do anymore. Netflix, bring this one back. Come on. What do we got? Somebody do this for it. Bring it back here.
Still the one. Let me tell you, no, it's still the one.
Good old
John, I
network.
think you introduced this quiz just as an excuse to get Richard to sing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much that's all I ever do. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, we'll get the Frasier song another time. But
the Ankler Christmas album approaches.
Yes, the greatest hits we'll get there at the end of the year. But anyway, that's a wrap for this week. Of course, you can go to theankler.com to sign up for all the newsletters here at The Ankler. Just enter your old email address. Good to go. Reach us here at the podcast anytime at podcasts@theankler.com and follow on the socials at The Ankler on your favorite social platforms. Elaine, Richard, good to see you. Going on some memory lane. But Lane, we got to find this leather book for TV Guide. We got to find this cover somewhere. We have to, not let Richard down. So we have a job ahead of us.
Make some bids today.
We'll get on the eBay and we'll find out. Make Richard's dreams come true. Find a home for his fall preview there from 1978 there. So finally has a home. Anyway, thank you all for listening as well. We'll see you next time.